down a little bit. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for being with us here today. My name is State Representative Tom Weber. I represent areas of Lake and McHenry County, Illinois, the 64th District, which covers my hometown, Lakeville, Illinois. We're gathered here today with a shared goal: to protect women in women's sports. For more than 50 years, Title IX has stood as a landmark civil rights achievement, ensuring women are not left behind in educational and athletic opportunities. Title IX was never about special treatment. It was about equal footing. And when it comes to athletics, that means a level playing field. Title IX opened the doors for generations of women to compete, to excel, and to break barriers. Not by competing with men, but competing on teams designated for them against their peers. Today, that legacy is facing serious challenges. And for those who have not read, there's a report from the United Nations titled Violence Against Women and Girls in Sports that documents that over 890 medals have been stolen by men in 26 different women's sports. And this report was as of over a year ago. So those numbers are much higher. This isn't just about fairness, it's also about safety. In contact sports particularly. The physical disparities between biological males and females can lead to serious injury and risks. No young woman should have to choose between her athletic goals and her physical safety. To give a basic comparison, this safety concern is exactly why we already have age differences in our sports and youth sports and schools. If we recognize the need to separate youth sports by age for safety reasons, why are we refusing to accept the same basic biological realities when it comes to protecting the safety of girls in girls' sports? It's common sense. This is why I have filed Bill number 4027, the Riley-Gaines Act, to require public schools and colleges that have interscholastic or intercollegiate athletics to provide equal athletic opportunity for members of both sexes. The bill lays out clear requirements that schools designate sports teams as either male, female, or co-ed, and prohibits biological males from competing for or against teams designated for females. As policymakers, we have a responsibility to uphold the principles of fairness and safety for all. And in doing so, we must protect the very purpose of Title IX, not weaken it. And now I would like to introduce two brave young women, Abbigail Wheeler and Caitlyn Wheeler. And just for those who know, this is mom and grandma in the front row here. So we have three generations of Wheeler women here today with us. So next, Caitlyn.
Thank you so much, Representative Weber, and thank you, Representative Deering, for being here and advocating for women in women's sports, introducing these bills. I want to thank you all. My name is Caitlyn Wheeler. I was a competitive swimmer for 18 years, and I graduated from the University of Kentucky, where I was teammates with Riley-Gaines. I graduated as an NCAA qualifier, a multiple-time All-American, and an SEC champion. And I've now dedicated my life to defending the rights of women and girls in sports and spaces with the Riley-Gaines Center, protecting fairness, safety, and dignity for women. It's not a Republican or Democrat issue. It's common sense. And the fact that we even need legislation like HB 4027 and HB 1117 should be a national wake-up call. I've trained beside male athletes for most of my career. I know the biological differences, how much stronger, faster, and more powerful they are, and how big that biological gap is. Not to say that women are unequal or not the same, or unequal, we are just not the same. I know how hard women have to work. For every 100th of a second shaved off in the sport of swimming, races come down to the 100th of a second. In soccer, a burst of speed that changes the outcome of a game. In track, a single stride. Or in basketball, it's one rebound or one block. Women train their entire lives to close those margins. That's why Title IX was passed, so that girls like myself could compete on a level playing field. But when males step into those spaces, onto those, into the pool or onto the courts, those efforts, those years of hard work are erased in an instant. That's not bigotry, it's biology and it's common sense. Yet today, the playing field we're seeing is being erased, and we're told that it's no big deal, or it's not really happening that much, or there aren't men competing in women's sports. Just be quiet. But let me be very clear. Laws should never be used to erase reality. A male's self-identification does not and should not outweigh a girl's right to fairness, safety, and privacy in her locker room. This isn't hypothetical. It's happening and it's real. And if you still believe the lie that it's rare, you've been fooled. Remember this: one girl robbed of her place on the podium or violated in a locker room is already one too many. We don't need to agree politically to agree morally. But I would like everyone to ask themselves, would I let my daughter undress in a locker room with a man? Would I make her race against a male for a scholarship? Is that fair to her? Would I force her to move because she feels unsafe in her own locker room? This isn't hate, again. It isn't bigotry. It's basic fairness, and it's about what's right and what's wrong. So I'm here today asking Illinois legislators and leaders everywhere, really, to stand up, not just for the girls here today, but for every girl in the state of Illinois and across the country who's maybe not found her voice yet. We're counting on you to make the right decision, and we're done being silent. We will not back down, and please do the right thing, the moral thing, protect women and girls. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you to everyone for being here today to support the HB 4027 bill. Thank you to the members of the General Assembly who are fighting to protect women and girls across Illinois. Most like to say it's not happening, and that if it's happening, it's not happening that often. This bill is just important. It's not urgent. I'm sorry. This bill isn't just important. It's urgent. It's about restoring fairness, safety, and truth back into women's sports and private spaces. It's about making sure that men cannot take away the opportunities, records, scholarships, and spaces that were fought for by generations of women. When I was 16 years old, at our local YMCA, where fully grown men were allowed to undress in front of us. Yes, men were allowed to undress in the locker room in front of my underage teammates and I. When I asked for help from my coach and the administration, the response I got was, if you're uncomfortable, you can change somewhere else. We are following the law. That is not protection. That is abandonment. And this is exactly why we need this bill. Because the law is being misinterpreted and twisted to incorporate insanity. Girls are being sacrificed at the altar of political correctness. If the law tells young girls to move for grown men, then the law is broken, and that is our job to fix it. Now, the High School Association has made it clear in writing that they will not comply with the president's executive order protecting women's sports and spaces, banning men from them. Instead, they're hiding behind legal confusion and refusing to take a stand for girls like me and my girls from my teammate, and girls across Illinois. I am so grateful to Representative Tom Weber and Reagan Deering and the leaders who are speaking out and demanding action. But we shouldn't have to beg for common sense. We shouldn't have to ask for permission to be safe. It's time to stop bullying young women into silence It's time to defend women's spaces and rights, women's teams, and women's spaces. It's time to pass HB 4027. Thank you.
Thank you to Abigail and Caitlyn for being here this morning. I'm Reagan Deering, State Representative of the 88th District, which includes parts of Macon, McLean, Piatt, DeWitt, and Livingston counties in central Illinois. As a mom of 2 daughters, I believe every girl deserves the opportunity to compete on a level playing field. My husband and I want our daughters and every woman to feel safe, respected, and protected. And I want them to gain the confidence, camaraderie, and strength that so many girls develop through sports. This is why I introduced House Bill 1117, a measure that would require school sports teams to be designated as male, female, or co-ed, with students only being able to participate on teams that match their biological sex. Unfortunately, the Democratic supermajority wouldn't even allow the bill to be heard in committee, jeopardizing the safety of young women and girls in sports. Last month, House Republicans sent a letter to IHSA asking about their intent to comply with federal policy that clearly prohibits permitting biological men to compete against biological women in sports. The IHSA delayed their response, and when they finally returned a letter to our caucus, they chose to deflect instead of providing information for an actual plan. The IHSA has refused to provide clarity, but it does not absolve them of their responsibility by siding with radical gender ideology over the concerns of parents, coaches, and athletes. The IHSA is dismissing the severity of the situation and silencing the voices of girls who have trained their whole lives for a fair shot. Fairness in girls' sports is not up for negotiation. Privacy and safety are not political issues. I refuse to stay silent while unelected bureaucrats and politically pressured institutions make decisions that compromise our daughters' future. Thank you very much, and now we will open up the opportunity for questions.
So this isn't the one that, according to The Southern, the paper in Carbondale, this isn't the one that affects 3 people?
One girl is one too many. How many does it take to be exploited in locker rooms, violated in locker rooms, have their opportunities taken away in their sports? How many? Give me a number. 3, 10, 100?
That notwithstanding, there's going to be a state law for something that, according to the Southern Illinoisan, affects, there are 800 school districts in Illinois. If there were 800 kids who are trying to steal the medals and undress in front of girls, that would be 1 per district. And according to the Southern, there are 3.
Even one male athlete in women's sports affects every other girl competing in whatever sport it is, and every girl that has to go and share a locker room, a private space, an area that is supposed to feel safe to young women. Obviously, it's uncomfortable to undress in a locker room, but to put boys in girls' locker rooms, that's complete insanity. That's taking away their right to privacy in their own spaces. Obviously, girls and women deserve, the same rights as men, and I think privacy is the bare minimum. We're not asking for a lot here. We're asking for the bare minimum. Equal opportunity and fairness, and really just the integrity of Title IX to be upheld.
Now, if I'm a middle school or high school person, I'm probably under 18. Can I be trans? Can I go through the whole thing at that age, under 18?
Personally, I don't think that minors should be allowed to make decisions that can permanently affect their entire lives. I know people who have undergone the sex reassignment surgeries, the HRT, who have, come out and said this was a huge mistake. I now have to live with permanent damage. I can no longer have kids. I can't breastfeed my children. I don't think minors should be able to make lifelong huge decisions prior to that age, but I do believe if you're over 18, by all means, do whatever you would like to with your own bodies, live your lives the way you want, but don't demand that everyone else live by your way of life and affirm your way of life. That goes against, my First Amendment rights and my rights, as a woman as well.
Lawmakers, how old do you have to be to go through the process of becoming trans?
Personally, I'm not familiar with what might be considered a transition. You know, our job as legislators is to make sure that we are drafting policy that is representative of the majority of our constituents. And when you mention a small number of athletes that might be, impacted by this law, I think that's a perfect defense. We should be doing the right thing. We should be doing what our constituents are asking us to do every day when we come here to the Capitol.
Representative Weber, same question. How old do you have to be to, get the treatments, surgery, et cetera?
I think most people are disturbed when they hear that hospitals in Illinois were performing double mastectomies on girls under the age of 18. I don't think that's something the majority of people think is okay. Unfortunately, what we're talking about today has to do with what has happened to these women and many other women in women's sports. There's going to be a lot of lawsuits over the next couple of years regarding those issues and others. And when you say the locker room, sports, maybe there's 3 athletes that people know of in the state of Illinois. I've had numerous reports in regards to bathrooms and locker rooms, because those aren't the ones that are reported. Until a parent gets so frustrated, so scared, that they risk losing all their friends, risk the hatred to come forward and speak out. That's the only time we hear about it. It's not a one-off. I have young kids in my district that have called out. I had a dad call about a daughter getting injured in a soccer game. Now, he works for the government, so he asked me, he said, I just want you to be aware of it. But please don't say anything about where it is or anything. So, we're talking about 2 young ladies here. If you didn't notice, I saw mom crying. I saw daughters crying. We have grandma here. They're willing to stand up and fight for what the majority of people, science, and everything else tells us is a biological truth, that there is a difference between males and females.
Now, ladies, you're both swimmers,
Yes, sir.
and where's home for you?
Go ahead. I am from Springfield, Illinois, and still live in Springfield, Illinois.
I live in Florida now, but I live in Tennessee, but I was born and raised in Illinois, played sports here. Obviously love Illinois and need some major help. And I think in regards to this issue specifically, again, it shouldn't be a one-party issue. This is a unifying issue, if anything. We know that the data shows this is an 80-20. The data shows it's an 80-20 issue amongst all parties. In the Democratic Party, it's way over 50% majority of even Democrats. And again, it shouldn't be a Republican versus Democratic issue. We've seen people from both sides of the aisle come out and say, look, even Gavin Newsom has come out and publicly admitted that this is a deeply, in his words, deeply unfair thing. And so I just really think, again, we need our elected officials, our representatives in these states, to be representative of the people. That is their job, not to abide by the people who are, feeding them their paychecks. Be representative of your people. Have the strength and the courage and the spine, if I might say, to stand up for young women and girls. Again, we're asking for the bare minimum.
And Miss Abigail, you're a Kentucky Wildcat too?
I am not. I am actually in high school. I am a senior, and I am homeschooled.
Oh, very good, thanks.
I'm told. You can
Since you're talking about moral issues, it's about moral issues. People have different moral ethic, ability. So would you say people who say allowing them to participate morally makes sense? Would that be wrong for thinking that?
Yeah, I think morality comes down to truth. What is truth? We look to science. We know that men and women are different. It's biological reality. It's not even based in my faith. I see my truth comes from the Bible and biblical truth. But aside from biblical truth, science is on our side here. It shows that the differences between men and women coming down to chromosomes. Obviously, that doesn't make men again better and somehow inferior, but you have to acknowledge that there are physical differences between men and women, and I think that this issue is a black and white issue. It shouldn't be controversial. It isn't one rooted in hate. It isn't trying to, keep or prevent anyone from participating in sports. I love sports. I did it for 18 years of my life. I still try to participate in them, and I encourage everyone to participate in sports. I think, anyone should, but you have to remain within the bounds of, what sports entail. And that is keeping the integrity, keeping fairness, keeping the equal opportunity, everything that sports means and has meant to me for my whole life. We must protect those integrities. So,
talking about some stats with trans women, they're a group of people that have some of the highest suicide rates. And so, obviously you're trying to protect women's sports, but this is quite a vulnerable group. Are you not worried that maybe kicking them out, you kind of push them towards maybe taking their own lives?
So there's opportunities for training. There's opportunities for co-ed sports. There's opportunities for staying in the sports that you've been in since you were a kid. Obviously, this is about protecting women. It's not about hurting anyone. It's not about attacking anyone, but it is about fairness. And when you read reports like the United Nations, I mean, that was over a year ago, 890 medals. This is the United Nations, right? Puts this report out. There's multiple other reports that I've reviewed, and you can just open up media and search. And I think one of the most recent, California, biological male goes out and takes first place long jump, first place triple jump, first place high jump. Those are not one-offs. And we know what happens in California is eventually coming to Illinois. It has happened time and time again, year and year. Like I said, we have people call. People are afraid to speak out. These young ladies were afraid to speak out, but they were also afraid, of what they were experiencing. So we're here to protect women and women's sports. That is the bottom line. So.
Under current law, and ignoring the trans issue altogether, under current law, if a boy in high school wants to play volleyball, what happens?
You mean a biological boy?
I mean a boy who identifies as a boy, wants to play volleyball. What happens under current law?
Well, I think our local school districts have a responsibility to follow federal law, and what we're talking about here is Title IX violations. And so when we have Title IX in place, it's been historical.
Would it be a Title IX violation to not allow him to play volleyball on the girls' team, since there probably isn't a boys' volleyball team?
Well, then you would have a co-ed opportunity. A school district could label their team co-ed. It would be like football has done, wrestling has done. There are opportunities. But if you have a biological male that is allowed to compete in a female-sanctioned sport, yes, they are currently violating Title IX. And if that school was to receive federal funding, then they would be in violation.
Are you sure about that interpretation of Title IX?
If you would like to provide me with reference, but as I stand here today, that's my understanding of Title IX.
Okay.
We do have 2 current lawsuits from the state of Illinois against both the filed with the Department of Justice and the Department of Education for this exact instance. We in Illinois, we're trying to fight for our taxpayers too. We're looking to potentially lose millions of dollars in federal funding based on these progressive ideals that we're trying to stand behind. And legislators like Tom and I and those in the Republican caucus are standing for our constituents. We love it here. We want to stay here. We want to be able to use our taxpayer dollars appropriately.
All right, we're gonna
Representative
take one more
Deering.
question.
So, just for Deering, so when it comes to emotional development of trans girls, obviously if you do this policy, it could isolate them, lead to depression, to suicide rates jumping, right? Obviously there's co-op, right? But once if trans girls need to have that environment to be with other women solely, is that isolating them in some way by making them even go into co-op?
Well, what we're talking about today is protecting all athletes. And if we have gender-confused athletes that are looking to compete, there are opportunities for them. But our legislation talks about sanctioned sports, and we're trying to create an opportunity to maintain these biological females' right to compete in their sports, to win awards, to gain scholarships, and continue to have a career and a camaraderie.
All right, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Hey, Colleen,